Imagine this. It's late 2010 and you're sitting in front of your TV playing Call of Duty Black Ops 1 or whatever was popular back then.
Why is he here? He lost. Got it!
You say definitively that console games are superior to mobile gaming because up until that point, they had been. You had games like Fruit Ninja or Harry Potter that had clearly been imported from the DS.
But this is good.
The graphics were simply not up to the par that console games were. Then you start seeing a new mobile game appearing in the news. Its name, Infinity Blade. An immediate hit sensation, causing 2 sequels and multiple books to be spawned because of it. And then, its popularity gradually tapered off, and today it's no longer purchasable on the App Store, reduced to a mere accessory in Fortnite.
I'm so sweaty right now.
How could this have happened? How did such a massive game's success not last longer? Here is the story of Infinity Blade, the best mobile game you can't play. Infinity Blade is a fantasy mobile game released on December 9th, 2010 on iOS 3.2.
Richard, I just smashed your phone.
You what?
Yes, this game was originally for the iPhone 3GS and was running Unreal Engine 3. A disturbing fact about this game is that it was made by 2 developing companies, those being Chair Entertainment, which is, the good one, and Epic Games. No, the same people who made the funny Victory Royale game made this game as well. Oh boy, how low they've stooped. According to their fandom page, they made roughly 1.6 million USD in the first 4 days alone, which is remarkable considering the time. But I digress. This is the introduction to the game.
Monsieur Combrave, hero. Hatoy conmesene.
Shoskian Baluste. Prohinzia diorosista comunze poc previanda.
Kamoles me. Mosi kemele misama. Koro.
You, as the player, engage in combat with the Dark Knight.
Max, what do you want for dinner?
Justice.
A subordinate of the God King, the man sitting on the throne. This acts as a tutorial for you, demonstrating the basic form of combat. To fight, you swipe across the screen to attack, tap the bottom corners to dodge, or tap the center of the screen to parry. It's incredibly simple and insanely easy to learn. This game isn't known for its difficulty, but rather the mechanics of fighting. You can either take a more cautious approach, parrying or dodging a lot, or just go berserk and swipe any opportunity you get, much like 1.8.9 Minecraft PvP.
Come here. Oh, you're 7. Okay, is he racing?
This is
no,
actually
he's not.
sensory overload.
No, he's racing.
The first encounter is fully scripted, the Dark Knight slashing your sword and shield from your hand as soon as you understand the basic necessities of combat.
Sonni korora. Mismir fan me koro. Kimese klasono.
The God King rambles on, calling the player a, quote, catalyst. This is in reference to the Bloodlines mechanic of the game. Of course, you can't beat the main enemy of the game upon just starting it, so instead the God King slays you. It cuts to another man standing outside of the castle, presumably a descendant of the man who had just been killed. You see, this function can happen multiple times throughout the game if you happen to die. Your descendant will take the mantle and continue trying to defeat the God King at all costs, the enemies gradually increasing in difficulty the more times you die. Much like other fantasy games, you can acquire treasure and whatnot before your encounters.
I'm coming after you.
A landscape shot is shown to you before you start anything, allowing you to scroll through the environment and potentially find gold, potions, or chests. Using the gold, you can purchase more weapons or armor.
Oh my god, this shit is Gucci, bro.
Furthermore, you can drink the potions in the midst of a fight to increase your health again. As well as this, your shield can lose durability in combat and potentially break if you're not careful enough. In the shop, there's a total of 146 items, not all of which are unlockable. With a handful of them, they need to be acquired through combat, but despite this, it's still a huge number of items, especially considering the size of the game. It's this fusion of pre-existing techniques and new ones that solidify this game as unique. It doesn't jump the shark and try to bring you a crazy experience. Instead, it opts to build on what you already know from fantasy games such as Oblivion. That's right, I didn't say Skyrim. Skyrim had yet to be released at this time. In fact, it still had a year to go, and that's just crazy. Like, can you remember that? Story-wise, the game is lacking a bit at first glance, in the sense that it's more like FNAF in that aspect. Rather than throwing a ton of lore at you, you need to piece it together as you go along, especially taking the God King's dialogue into consideration. You play as the protagonist Cyrus, who's voiced by... oh my god. Troy Baker. Of course he's voiced by Troy Baker. Everybody, this only applies for the second and third games though, as the first one is entirely spoken in Pangean. The reason you must defeat the God King is because of the sacrifice, a tradition this bloodline is coerced to follow in the hopes of one day succeeding. You go through the castle, fighting many types of different enemies, all of them significantly larger than you are. They are called Titans and come in 3 variants: light, heavy, and dual.
Oh my god, it's true good. Hey man.
The Titans in the same class all share the same animations, making them blend together in a way and taking away some of the distinctiveness of each battle. Light enemies have a sword and a shield, heavies bear 2 weapons, and duals have 2 weapons as well, although they are the same weapons. The game is a bit repetitive in these fights, the only form of difficulty coming from the immense speed of some of the Titans. Nevertheless, they do have some unique characteristics. For example, the Paladins, of which there are 4 types: Inferno, Frozen, Storm, and Venom. They all have differing areas of expertise: the Inferno Paladin Fire, the Frozen Paladin Ice, etc. But none of them are as interesting as the God King, formerly named Radriar. Even after I was beefed up and ready to fight him, his monumental speed still caught me off guard. This leads me to my next point. Let's say that, hypothetically, you're a little man and you lose against the Dark Knight rather than Radriar. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You take enough hits to your shield and are defeated. What'll then happen is a negative bloodline will begin. The opening text, instead of saying 20 years later, saying negative 20 years later. You'll enter the game with the Dark Mech armor, and the opponent should be easier because of it. You'll gain more experience and more gold simply by being in this bloodline, which can then be brought to positive bloodlines and spent. It's a pretty good leveling up technique. It's this endless cycle of fighting and revival that make up the bulk of this game, progressively increasing your skill as the game's difficulty inflates until you reach the end. There are 3 endings to this game. The first one is joining Radriar if you're having trouble actually defeating him. He'll request for you to join him halfway through the fight. He states that he is no longer a mortal, referencing how he is a Deathless. The Deathless is an immortal species in this world. Every single character you fight is a Deathless. Radriar goes on to say that there are stronger beings than him. Together, you are tasked with defeating all of the Deathless before the end credits roll. The second ending is killing Radriar. After the credits roll, you see what looks like a Nokia phone, and you, being the 40 IQ beta you are, touch it. That was so mean. That was... I'm sorry. Suddenly, a massive projector comes down from the sky, revealing what looks like a hologram of the Earth with shards of the moon circling around it. In the third ending, you see the hologram and are brought to a different location. Inside it, you see a bunch of clones of Radriar in a green liquid and a huge mech. If you defeat the mech, a character by the name of Arkarin will reveal themselves. He says that, quote, he will find you and that, quote, he will claim what is rightfully his. Naturally, you brush it off your shoulder and reply with, quote, when he comes, I'll be waiting.
Ada los yamot, ada tokamo los adan. Depositavna loji, ada la sima, unili tabada, unili topada. Udara desaras, yosa antelili.
This dialogue is mainly hinting at a second game. That's right, there are 2 more games to this that get into even more lore. The great thing about this game is the sheer lack of other games that were up to this caliber of quality during the time period. For instance, Cut the Rope came out a few months prior to Infinity Blade's release. They're completely different games on a fundamental level, don't get me wrong, but one major aspect that can be noted is that one appears like a mobile game and the other appears like a console game. Utilizing Unreal Engine 3, this game looks spectacular, with all of the character models on par with anything getting released on Xbox or PlayStation at the time, regardless of the lack of proper lighting. I'd like to make something clear very quickly. This is an iPhone 3G. It was revolutionary that a game such as this could be run on such a small device. Even for the time, this game was fairly large, taking up a total of 948 megabytes, which isn't much considering the 2 terabytes of whatnot on your hard drive nowadays, but for then, this was seen as a legitimate game. I'd go as far as to say it kickstarted the demand for mobile games.
See? There's nothing wrong with that.
Moving on to the lore and gameplay. Unfortunately, I only have the first game on my iPad mini, so I can't play these titles, but they do exist out there. The sad thing about that is that I remember playing Infinity Blade 2, like sometime in the past. It was most likely on my iPad at some point, but I suppose I had deleted it since then to clear up space or something like that. You know, oh well. With Infinity Blade 2, it introduced the concept of combos. You could strike relatively infinitely without your opponent doing much of note. I personally don't love this combat mechanic, as I think it makes the fights a little too easy, but besides that, this is a huge step up from the previous game. With that said, I can't talk about it yet as there's a novella that details the events that occurred between the first and second games. I was unaware of this for obvious reasons, meaning I was like 4 or something, and apparently it's integral to the story, so I'll give you a quick summary. Cyrus, the character you played as, has just defeated Radriar and heads back to his hometown, that of Drem's Maw. Since Cyrus now has the Infinity Blade in his possession, he's coerced to leave the town, as locals fear for their lives, dreading the potential of the Deathless coming to take it back. Thinking to himself, the author states that, quote, as frustrated as he was with the townsfolk of Drem's Maw, he was coming to understand why he'd been required to leave. He couldn't remain long in any location where the Deathless knew to find him. They'd kill him and take the sword. If he was going to survive, he needed to escape. Yeah, it's corny, but you get the idea. According to the book, the castle you had initially gone through is named Lantamore, where Cyrus meets a girl named Issa who becomes companions with him. In the first game, you had fully activated the Infinity Blade by killing the Ancestor, who came in the form of Arkarin. The only possible way to kill a Deathless is by killing it with a fully activated Infinity Blade, and thus, the partners have their objective. Cyrus and Issa tried to track down the creator of the Infinity Blade, named the Worker of Secrets, by talking to another Deathless named Sadie, in the hopes of defeating the now resurrected Radriar. Cyrus alone fights Sadie's champions, but then Sadie attacks him, causing Cyrus to kill her. Radriar, suddenly appearing, captures him and steals the Infinity Blade. To stop Radriar from killing Cyrus with the Infinity Blade, Issa kills him, causing him to wake up in one of the tanks we originally saw Radriar in the first game. There, Cyrus discovers his true name is Ausar. The descendants who all fought Radriar were simply clones. Now, Cyrus and Issa leave each other, Cyrus choosing to free the Worker of Secrets and vowing to kill all the Deathless. Long-winded way of saying the plot essentially repeats. Onto the second game, you start at the entrance of Sadie's house, which is blocked by multiple titans. Following in the footsteps of the first game, the first 3 battles act as a tutorial for you, teaching you the basic mechanics of the game, the 4th one being a true fight.
You do realize that now every Deathless in the world is going to come hunting you for that blade.
I'll find someone to help me. Maybe someone to take the sword off my hands. The Worker of Secrets.
The Worker is a myth. Pure fabrication. Nobody fights back against the Deathless. Nobody.
I did.
You're committed to this foolish course?
I am.
Sadie. She's one of the Deathless. An information dealer. If anyone knows where the Worker of Secrets is, it'll be her.
What do I have to do?
Sadie has a standing invitation. She loves duels. Any man who can best her champions wins a prize. Fight your way to her, and she'll answer a question for you.
When you're finished with these battles, Sadie directs you to the Vault of Tears, which is where the Worker of Secrets resides, supposedly. Curious whether Cyrus has an ulterior motive or not, they naturally engage in combat because, yeah, of course they do. Once you beat her, a carving of the Infinity Blade is shown in stone, implying that it needs to be slotted in there. The Infinity Blade drops to the ground, Radriar's voice coming from behind. Radriar suspects that Sadie would have utilized the blade to kill him, to which he thanks Cyrus for making his job easier.
A pity. But I suppose you did me a favor by killing her.
So you do still live. And you know what I am. You sought out my lineage.
Oh, I know what you are. Though I am more and more certain that you do not. Thank you for returning this to me.
Give me a sword. Fight me!
I think not. You surprised me last time. I don't think I'll put myself in that position again. You really don't know what you are, do you? Ironic. What did you do to yourself? Oh, sir.
With the blade now in Radriar's possession, he leans it against Cyrus's neck. Suddenly, an arrow to the face from Issa, restarting the lineage from the beginning, just like in the book. If Cyrus were to be killed with the Infinity Blade, it would have been permanent. There are only 3 ways to kill the Deathless in this world, and those are 1. Kill them with an activated Infinity Blade. 2. Kill every one of their bodies in their chambers. Or 3. QIP destabilization. The QIP, formerly known as the Quantum Identity Pattern, is what allows the Deathless to keep their minds even after they die. If this network were to be destabilized, there would be no proper method of revival, thus resulting in a permanent death. Moving forward, Cyrus now travels to the Vault of Tears, traversing through the tower and meeting another Deathless named Thane, who claims to be the first of the Deathless.
You are a fool to come here, mortal. This place holds nothing but death for one such as you.
You defeat him and create a seal on the tower. After this, you must fight 3 Blood Sentinels to progress and activate their seals. Each time a seal is activated, Cyrus will die and be resurrected. The first Blood Sentinel that appears is titled the Archivist. They're seen with a large obelisk with Pangean inscriptions written alongside it, the Archivist studying it.
You should not be here. What is this place? It was once the home of the most vile evil ever to befall this world. He's been gone for ages, slain by Radriar on the plains of Koroth. Many devoted believe him truly dead, yet here I study, ponder, and question.
After this, you once again fight Thane, throwing him over the side of the tower, allowing you to access the vault. When you enter, you see a large man sitting on the throne. This is the Worker of Secrets. The battle is then again interrupted by Thane, who you now must fight. But then, the Worker intrudes, destabilizing Thane's QIP and truly killing him. According to the Worker, he asks if Cyrus is Ausar, claiming that he was set to free him many millennia ago.
Ausar? Is that you? Have you at last come to release me, as you promised you would so many millennia ago?
I have little memory of who I was before. I'm not certain I wish any more than I have. I am known as Cyrus now.
Curious. A fate nearly worse than mine, it seems.
The only way for the Worker to be released from this cavern is to have Radriar do it himself. With Radriar still in Sadie's estate, Cyrus travels back to capture him. 3 of Radriar's minions are thrown at you, consecutive battles ending with the God King himself. Before fighting, he exclaims that Cyrus has been killed by him many times, and that this one will be different by making it permanent. The stakes are high, with Radriar in possession of the Infinity Blade. He refers to Cyrus as Ausar, his original name, and after being stunned, calls him vile, referencing how Cyrus was seen in the past, but I'll get into that a little later.
Oh, did I forget to mention? For me to leave this prison, another Deathless must take my place. I must thank you, Ausar. Not only have you freed me, but you've eliminated many of my rivals for this world. Those who remain will follow me. Or I will take from them that which they hold most dear, their eternal life. Unfortunately, for me to escape, old friend, I'll have to let you keep your life. You can spend an eternity in this cell.
Then, unexpectedly, a betrayal at the hands of the Worker. He leaves them there, incarcerated within the vault, Cyrus remaining there with Radriar. There, it is revealed that Cyrus was the person who originally imprisoned the Worker. The end of the second game. The credits roll as Issa rescues the 2 of them from the vault. As with the last book, the second book bridges the gap between the second and third games. As opposed to the last book, this one has 2 stories continuously working side by side, culminating in the introduction of this game. This is one of the storylines, titled The Pangean Chapters. The book begins with a repetitive cycle of death. Radriar and Cyrus fighting each other ruthlessly to the point of death. Of course, they naturally regenerate and allow the cycle to continue. Quote, "Your body heals essential organs first," says the God King. Your eyes come late in the process. Bringing 2 permanently killed Deathless, Issa opens the vault as seen at the end of the second game. The agreement between Cyrus and the Worker was that another Deathless must take his place, the ones with Issa occupying that role. Radriar, tired of being away from his kingdom, returns to find it in a desolate state. Upon his arrival, he notices that there's an improper version of himself, one that lacks a soul entirely. With the copy taking over the kingdom, the real Radriar is considered fake. The Worker had utilized a fragment of Radriar's QIP, meaning that the other clones of him existing in their chambers can be used for forced rebirth. In the book, it stated that, quote, "Such a thing was possible, but creations such as this were unstable, their memories flawed, their personalities erratic." He has very few individuals that believe in him. On a side note, between the first and second game, this one is certainly better written, although it lacks the poetic nature of most well-written stories. Again though, its only purpose is to bridge the gap between games, and it does that pretty well. Leaving with his last remaining followers, he searches and eventually meets with Cyrus and his new group of allies, with Issa. There, we learn more about the relationship between Cyrus and Issa, her saying that she thought he was, quote, "killed for good by the weapon." Then the God King returned, but worse. In the past, he's always kept order, too much order for my taste, but structure can be a good thing. Issa had troops of her own, one a white-haired woman named Lux. She has scars on her face, a perpetual scowl, and makes attempts at improving others' fighting ability. Throughout these scenes, Cyrus describes memories of himself as Ausar the Vile, fearing that he might break free once again. Naturally, upon Radriar's arrival, Cyrus and him are at odds with each other. The only way for them to progress is to join together as friends. Yeah, I know, it's cliche, but literally it's the only way to get to the worker. Radriar leads the group to a rebirthing chamber, explaining that it's capable of converting ordinary humans into Deathless. With no one remaining within his repertoire, it reveals that another Deathless is necessitated in their mission. And with that, Issa allowed herself to become one. Quote, "She no longer felt the muddled drowsiness that sometimes struck her in late afternoon. She didn't feel lethargic after sitting for a long time. She didn't sneeze. Her nostrils, both of them, were perpetually unclogged. A strange sensation of completion, almost as if a large portion of her physical ability had been heightened." Back to where it all started, they enter the tower, meeting face to face with the soulless Radriar, a man who's drawn close to insanity. Of course, they fight. A lot of the descriptions from the novella are glossed over, the imagery of the scene taking a backseat, which is ironic considering this is a fighting series. Similar to the ending of the first game, Cyrus uses a datapad and opens it, revealing the workers' true intentions, that being to destroy all organic life from the world by firebombing it from the remnants of the moon. And that's only the first half of this book. The other half is titled The Original Deviations. Uriel, a data analyst, is the focus of the modern interludes, or deviations. He's seldom on time and prefers statistics to people. He's also convinced that statistics are trustworthy and that they never lie. They're simpler to comprehend than Adram, a marketing expert who constantly encourages Uriel to look on the bright side of things. However, the evidence indicates that Mr. Galeth's non-living matter teleportation experiment will not provide the desired results. Uriel discovers that some people have been dismissed from the project. He starts comprehending the numbers, but not their utter significance. Uriel ultimately discovers that there is another project underway, one that is extremely secretive, and only a few people are chosen to take part in it. He works late as usual, putting up his best presentation for the forthcoming meetings, convinced that he will be the next person picked. His presentation impresses Mr. Galeth, but Adram is picked to be moved next. Uriel is accustomed to staying up late and his wife is always understanding. He does, however, choose to go home with the rest of the group one evening. In his driveway, he notices that there's Adram's car, which is a, quote, classic, and hence has not been modified to drive itself as rain pours down. Uriel realizes why his wife has never complained about his tardiness. She's having an affair with Adram. Uriel walks into the house without emotion, catching his wife and Adram doing unspeakable acts. Despite his hasty departure, Adram makes no hostile gestures or remarks against any of them. Uriel then finds that his son, Jory, was not picked up from school as he had planned, but was instead riding his bike home in the rain. Uriel rushes out of the house to see Adram enraged, his car parked on the curb with a bicycle underneath it. When Uriel sees Jory's body, his control is destroyed. He assassinates Adram by taking a wrench from his car's front seat. Uriel discovers that the covert project, which offered immortality to participants, was the only solution. He returns to work to inform Mr. Galeth that a place in his new project has become available. He reveals that he knows about the endeavor, which involves harnessing a person's soul via the quantum identity pattern. Uriel suggests that Mr. Galeth should consider his son for the project rather than himself. Galeth agrees on the condition that Uriel never returns to the project site. By putting Jory's corpse on the table, Uriel witnesses his rebirth as one of the immortals or deathless. He tells his son to, quote, be a king, then goes away, leaving Jory wailing in the last paragraph. Radriar is revealed to be Jory as an adult. Galeth, also known as the Worker of Secrets, appears to him. In an unexpected turn of events, they address each other by name. Radriar is determined to stop Galeth's destruction plans. Radriar encounters Ashimar, who was once his friend. When Radriar discovers that his old comrade has another Infinity Blade, he's taken aback. Radriar defeats him with the Infinity Blade and confronts the Worker. Although the Worker admits that he hasn't built a weapon capable of killing him, he lets Radriar fight him. Radriar is about to be slain when he teleports a module to Cyrus and Issa from another table. Galeth answers by impaling Radriar with his newest Infinity Blade, causing his QIP to be disrupted and therefore terminating his deathless life. This is the conclusion to Infinity Blade Redemption. This is the last book in the series. Once again, these books aren't the best written, but they serve their purpose. There's a coherent plot and somewhat interesting characters, although the main point of intrigue is with the world that is born. It's very much plot-driven, which usually isn't my cup of tea, but as something mindless, it was fairly refreshing from the games. Whereas the games are essentially non-stop action with limited scenes in between, these books delve deeper into the dynamics the characters have, something that simply can't be touched on in the games. And with that, we move into the fifth and final installment of the franchise, Infinity Blade 3. For the tutorial of the game, you start by playing as Radriar, a character you can now empathize with due to the previous book. Radriar challenges the Worker to a battle within Galeth's lair, the Ark, but the Worker instead summons his minions to attack him.
Minions, this is pointless. Face me yourself and know my fury.
Do you listen to yourself, Radriar? You really are something special.
Radriar, on the other side, fights a Dreadnought and a Shimar, then picks up his weapon, a new version of the Infinity Blade, after beating a Shimar. He's perplexed and asks the Worker why he made more Infinity weapons. Galeth, the Worker, responds that he intended to keep the Deathless engaged while destroying the Earth and to ensure that he could duplicate the Infinity Blade. Radriar then antagonizes the Worker by questioning how Ausar was able to capture the Worker in the Vault of Tears given the Worker's capabilities. The Worker, unable to respond other than to refer to Ausar as an anomaly, begins the combat by summoning Ashimar's Infinity Blade and striking down the God King.
You are mine, and you always have been. We are going to cleanse this planet, Radriar, and start anew. I need a few to serve beneath me. You will take this opportunity, and you will savor it, Radriar. Tell me of my mercy. Beg me to let you live.
You are right, I cannot defeat you. But I know who can.
No! No!
One thing to note is that the power scaling has gone up incredibly high, similar to how Dragon Ball worked as the story progressed. The levels have increased for all of the enemies to the point that they don't even mean anything anymore. The only purpose they serve is as a vessel for demonstrating how much skill you've garnered over the past two games. After then, the scene moves to Cyrus and Issa's hiding spot. Issa, who had just been reborn, awakens in the rebirth chamber. Cyrus informs her that she has been dead for a long time, and Radriar has disappeared. He told her that he would look for him at the castle of the God King, Larioth. Cyrus or Issa can now begin the act and interlude sequence. What follows is Act 1, titled The Anomaly. Cyrus travels to Larioth to find the God King. After meeting Shell, the merchant, and defeating countless titans, he enters Radriar's study to find a soulless God King, imitating Radriar.
Quite an entrance. What happened to you? Why did your Serengal attack me? You're not Radriar.
I rule this land now, Ausar, in the name of the true King of the Deathless.
My name is Cyrus. Ausar the Vile no longer exists.
Not for long, anyway.
Cyrus easily defeats the soulless God King, but he teleports away before Cyrus can gather any more information. He teleports back to his stronghold with the soulless God King's Infinity Blade and the datapod Radriar sent him. Act 2. Buried in the past. Issa has recovered and is looking for more Infinity weapons at a Sassian desert dig. When Terravax discovers a vault with slots for numerous Infinity weapons, she intervenes. She learns about hints leading to other weapons after defeating Terravax. Act 3. The Right Weapon. Issa sets off on a rescue mission for Jensen, the blacksmith who Radriar has kidnapped.
The villagers said the God King's monsters came. The smith was captured.
Wait, who is this?
He's a master blacksmith. I need him for what I have planned.
Why didn't you tell me any of this?
That's not important now.
It is to me.
The imposter must have taken the Forge Master. I'll go to Larioth and free him.
I'll go.
You don't know the layout.
I was the one who rescued you from the Vault of Tears. I can handle this.
After struggling in the broken tower, she ultimately finds Jensen in jail. A Thane QIP monster, however, intercepts her and compels her to face it. After defeating the QIP abomination, Issa releases Jensen, and the two return to the hideout. Cyrus sets out to find Theron, the Dream Killer, in the pit. Before encountering Theron, Cyrus confronts a Titan and a monstrosity inside the pit. He assassinates Theron and steals his Infinity Spear. Act 4. Revelations. Cyrus returns to Ceranthia's palace in pursuit of the Redeemer. Jensen reconfigures the Redeemer, preparing to delete Gallus' memories, while Eves modifies the QIP of the datapod. Issa makes her way to Kor's house to meet Lilindre, the End's mistress. While Lilindre is abusing Issa, she shields her and reveals the worker's hidden location.
Immortality. It numbs you after a while. The worker doesn't understand this. That's why I refused his salvation and stayed behind to watch the fire.
Where is he?
Right under your feet. I was tempted by his offer, but then I came to understand his intentions. He'll be ascending soon. Everyone left behind will die forever.
Ascending? To where?
Heaven.
She also bestows the Infinity Daggers onto her. Both Cyrus and Issa travel to the Ark to stop the worker from destroying the world. They arrive outside the worker's throne, after fighting Titans, monstrosities, and even Baal himself. The worker orders soulless Radriar to beat Cyrus, and join him on the Ark while Issa faces the soulless God King. Despite being gravely injured, Issa defeats him, who, in terms of numbers, is almost as strong as the true Radriar. Cyrus challenges Galith to a duel after preventing him from gaining entrance to the Ark. His Infinity Dagger is parried away from him after the combat and falls off the edge of the walkway. Galith grasps Cyrus's neck and prepares to stab him with the blade. Cyrus quickly turns around and thrusts the Infinity Blade into his chest. Galith, ridiculing him, claims that his sword would not kill him, but Cyrus places the Redeemer into the blade, wiping the entirety of Galith's memories. Cyrus is abruptly saved when Issa teleports him back to the hideout. The planet has now been saved from utter annihilation.
This world, I will unmake it as I please, just like I will unmake you!
Cyrus!
I created this blade. Did you really think it could kill me?
I never believed it would kill me. But I do believe
Cyrus
in redemption.
No! No!
After the credits roll, a little child may be seen building a sandcastle in the shape of the worker's tower, which contains the Ark. The worker is said to have been reborn as a child, with all his memories erased. If you go through the post-credit scene to the finish, you'll earn the accomplishment, quote, Toddler of Secrets, which supports this theory. Unfortunately, this is where this great series ends. Of course, there are little Easter eggs along the way. This means additional battles or weapons that wouldn't otherwise be accessible upon the first playthrough. I know what the title of the video says, but I implore you to find an emulator of this game online. A lot of mobile games nowadays are simply made for a quick buck, easily reproducible and distributed, creating tens of hundreds of rip-offs of classic games. There's even a lot more content in the games themselves, the most notable of which is that you can fight Ausar as Ausar, you know, like Cyrus, yeah. So that's kind of cool. Before discontinuing it in December of 2018, a lot more content was added in a few updates. And I've only covered the base game, so if you're interested at looking at more of the lore, feel free to. Now, the only relic of this game comes in the form of a powerful weapon in Fortnite. Located in Polar Peak, this Season 7 weapon was only granted to one player per match. It's all we have left of this incredible game. Some people even mistaking it for coming from Fortnite, which is fair, but it's still a depressing feat. This game truly is different, though. I can say firmly in my heart of hearts that this is the greatest mobile game franchise of all time.